Hog skid ladies and bare root boys. Continuously employ caution on the conch. Delicately drive your dibble bar. And did you say that this was a virgin forest?
Well, tap my trunk. It's time to talk Tull to me.
Nick, it's time I sat you down and told you where maple syrup comes from.
It's the maple fairies.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am Omen Thomas Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Moans.
And this, my little whorls and knotholes, is Talk Tull to me.
A marking sojourn in the microclimate of prog rock in which Nutmeg Nick and Olive Omen will count the rings of each and every timber-yielding track that reforestation rock band Jethro Tull have ever planted in the thin and loamy soil of our minds. With billhooks in hand, we will girdle Andrew Gidding's golden wattle, exercise directional felling for Doan Perry's date palm, prescribe a burn for Steve Bailey's butternut, and of course we will determine the merchantable height of Martin Barr's magnificent mango. And if we keep our seedlings saturated and our phloems fine, we may finally witness that redwood of rock and roll, the photosynthetic flautist, the baobab of Blackpool, the ironwood who plays so good, the Douglas fir whom we call Sir Ian Angophora Anderson.
Well done.
Thank you. I love trees.
I do too.
Oh, I mean, who doesn't? Who's like, trees not my thing?
I don't want to get political, but I won't get political. We'll just leave it at that. So speaking of reforestation,
yeah,
remember driving through Scotland and Skye, and a lot of it was cut down flat for
logging.
For logging, and also Ian's old stomping ground on Skye, he donated to the John Muir Land Trust.
Yeah.
To prevent it from being sold for logging and things like that. So
he really is a reforester of rock and roll. He's a rock reforester.
Yeah. He re-rocks the forest.
He plays in the middle. It's just no audience. Actually, probably his ideal concert. No audience, middle of the forest. And he says, "You ready to rock?"
Yeah. It's when he has the most energy. Yeah.
That's the applause of trees.
Mm-hmm. The deaf applause is that, so it's just the leaves doing
constantly,
that. Yeah.
Nick, speaking of trees, I must tell you how excited I am. And would you like to guess that reason?
Is it because...
Yes, your
hair plugs are looking great, Omen, I have to say.
Thank you. I'm going to do my head next.
Perfect.
I am so excited because we are, after working our way through Nightcap, we are finally moving on to another official album.
Right. We took quite the sojourn out of the way to cover Nightcap, but now we are back chronologically in the time flow of things here. And we are tackling studio album number 19. This was released in 1995, 4 years after their previous album in 91. This is Roots to Branches.
It sure is. Now, before we dive into the title track, which is also the first track of this album, there are a couple notable aspects of this album that I think would be worth mentioning.
Definitely, yes.
This is the final album to be released on Chrysalis.
That's right. Yeah.
And it is also the final album to feature one Mr. Dave Pegg.
And the first one for Andy Giddings.
And the first one for Andy Giddings, yeah.
At this time, to date in Tull, this features the 5 longest serving Tull members.
Yes.
Which would be Ian Martin, Peggy, and Andy? And Doan, I guess? Are those all the 5 longest?
I think Doan, yeah.
Was there that much turnaround? I mean, I feel I guess Andy and Doan, because they stay an extra long time, even though this is like their early years.
Oh, I see. This features the long... Okay, I see. Yeah.
It's this weird overlap. Yeah.
Ian writes a wonderful little blurb at the top of the section in Silent Singing. Perhaps we'd be interested in hearing that.
Yeah, let's get it.
With Dave Pegg under pressure due to an increasing number of Fairport convention shows, we needed to let him return to his world of traditional folk and his other band. To get the record made on time, we enlisted the help of Doane Perry's pal, Steve Bailey, bassist extraordinaire, also from the USA. Steve was a very quick learner, and we completed work in record time. Some very difficult passages of music resulted from the arrangements, but everyone rose to the occasion. There is an exotic Eastern feel to some of the songs, and others, like the last 3 tracks, could almost have been from Crest of a Knave. I think the most significant thing that here is that years of Dave Pegg playing in both bands simultaneously seems to have caught up with everyone. And I believe that is part of the reason that there was such a delay between the former album and this one, an unusual 4-year gap.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Personnel, as we know, Ian, Martin, Peggy, Andy Giddings, Doane. And in the Wikipedia, it says additional under personnel for Steve Bailey. But Steve does tracks 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and Peggy only does 3, 5, and 11. So I wouldn't necessarily call Steve Bailey additional. And on the vinyl itself, it doesn't call him additional. It's just something that is added to the Wikipedia, I think falsely.
What's in a word?
What's in a word? O, R, D, and W.
Yeah, that's right.
Tiny little tidbit about Steve Bailey is he is the current chair of the bass department at Berklee College of Music.
Yeah.
Started playing bass at 12, and he started playing fretless bass when he accidentally ran over his fretted bass.
Now, was it accidental?
I did make that assumption. I could be wrong.
I have an image of him saying, this bass has played its last note, jumping in his IROC and just revving it up.
And he gets rid of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Something else to note is during the tour for this album, Jonathan Noyce was our bassist.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's right, because I had not recognized Steve Bailey as...
No, I hadn't either.
A Tull bassist, and evidently he is.
Yeah.
But didn't do the tour.
Right. And obviously neither did Peggy, so Jonathan Noyce stepped up. And I think Jonathan Noyce is probably on the next album as well. Wouldn't be surprised.
I think he was with the band for a long time.
Yeah. So I have one of the very few, very expensive actual vinyls.
Oh my gosh.
Of Roots to Branches. Raven bought it for me for a gift.
Wow.
A couple of years ago, and it is gorgeous and lovely. But I just discovered today it also had the official world tour for Roots to Branches program inside.
Oh, wow.
And it's got some really fascinating stuff, and it's got a page for each of the songs with one of the band members' profiles and talking about it. So I will pepper these in as we go through all throughout this album. And it is really a substantial, they just don't make programs like this anymore. It's really nice.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we buy the vinyl.
That's right. It was a pleasant surprise. This didn't come with the vinyl.
Our wives to buy the vinyl.
Right.
Wait, I thought you said it did come with the vinyl.
This program came with this vinyl that was bought, but it wasn't a part of the vinyl. It was a part of the world tour.
And if you can follow that, write in.
I think everybody else understood.
Write in and let me know how to get this Chinese finger trap off of my hands.
It's got a ticket, a German ticket from the tour.
That's really, really cool. What a neat bit.
I'll save the little blurb for this one for the middle. We'll save it for the middle of the ep. But for now, I think we ought to jump in, unless you got anything else.
I have nothing. Let us dive into the titular track off of Roots to Branches, entitled Roots to Branches.
Roots to Branches, on Roots to Branches, rooted into your ears.
Nick McGill.
Omen Sade. We are in a stretch where you have heard these songs before. We're back into not so fresh and so clean territory.
some old and dirty.
Musty, dusty.
The reason for that is that I find it to be a more satisfying experience doing the podcast when I'm more familiar with the music.
Yeah.
And I think that it's nice when an inconnu track pops up, but going through so many of them back to back, I was like, I just want to listen to the album.
Yeah.
But that being said, this is still the album with which I am the least familiar out of the whole canon.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
What about you?
It is also one of those that I'm the least familiar with. I'm certainly more familiar with it than you are. I've listened to it, I think a couple of months ago. I was like, I'm gonna start listening to this album more. And I have listened to it several times in the last couple of months, and it has become a regular, I want to listen to Tull, but I don't want to listen to this one. I don't want to listen to this one. I'll put this one on because it's still kind of new to me.
Yeah. No dead wood on this track.
Nope. 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Fun fact, this entire album is an hour on the nose. It is
really, is it
60 minutes? That's pretty cool.
Wow, that's just exactly like the concert that they played.
That's right. Yeah.
1 hour for the first set, 1 hour for the second, including all the applause and everything.
And then I had the outrageous idea that we should have done, each episode should have been the length of the track that we were covering. Boy, it would have been a whole hell of a lot quicker that way.
Hey, it's not too late. Oh, actually, we're over time.
All right. Good night. Thanks, everybody. It was great. See you next week.
So just right off the bat, I mean, let's dive in.
Yeah.
We have a full minute. 1 out of those 60 minutes is dedicated to the introduction of this song and thereby the album.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
It's really setting us up for this oral environment of really kind of heavy rock, heavier than a lot of Tull.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been building up to this kind of heavy sound. And this certain degree of exoticism that Ian has really toyed with in the past, but never really committed to until now. And we can attribute that to his having just been to India.
Right.
During the writing of this album or before. In fact, a reviewer referred to this as the Indian songs from the wood, basically.
Yeah, which is quite interesting and not entirely accurate.
Right.
But there is a strong influence of Indian music and Indian culture throughout this whole album, which I, for one, am freaking excited for.
Yeah, it's very nice. Also, in parallel, if you want to think about it, the same year in 95, later in the year, his solo album Divinity's Dances with Gods came out.
Oh.
And the sound is very similar. I listened to that album. I listened to this one and then Divinity's right after it just today.
Nice.
And the sound is so similar.
That's not one that I'm super familiar with either. This whole era, I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah.
That one's completely instrumental.
Oh, wow.
It's 12 instrumental tracks. Yeah, it's really nice.
So right off the bat, we have this lush and mysterious synth oozing in, preparing the ground for what comes next. We have Martin, as if at a distance, coming in with these really, really gritty stings, like a tiger, observing you through the foliage.
He's not giving us a rhythm. He's not giving us a drive. He's just coming in and out and just kind of stinging and grunging a little bit.
Yeah. And then we have the bass played by Steve Bailey.
This one is Bailey, yep.
Sneaking in. Really, I mean, maybe a lot of this comes down to the editing and the mixing of it, but I did see that Ian had mentioned his intention was to make this as similar to a live playing experience for the listener.
Interesting.
So that's quite an interesting element of it.
I get it. I could see it. Upon listening to it, I wouldn't think oh, that's what he's going for. But now that you mention it, I can see it.
Yeah. And Steve Bailey is doing amazing work right off, right as soon as he was in. bringing things out. And then the dynamics of this song are, I think, the most exciting thing for me. The shifts between these really pulled back moments, these really, really aggressive, hard, everything being out there. It sonically quite an exciting song to listen to.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. The bass and the drums kind of sit in the back as they normally do, but you can definitely make out Doan's work. He's plugging all the way back there. It's very Doan drumming. It's just, I don't know if it's accurate, but it just feels like American drumming to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like his attack is more direct or something. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it.
He drums on the right side of the road.
That's what it is.
I think that's what it is.
He drums in the opposite direction when he goes down the drain.
That's right. That's right.
That's how it works.
Because of India?
We've got the guitar, we've got the percussion. Ian's flute comes in this lilting, kind of floats over the top. But even while he's there, we have this bright flute sound. There are times when he gets a little piercing and it takes it up just a little too high. So we do have that balance of hard guitar, nice lilting flute, but it's not always lilting. It pushes it to the edge.
I had a moment just listening to it in my headphones where for the intro, I was like, oh, I want to turn it up and really hear everything. And about 45 seconds later, I was like, whoa, I'm going to turn it down a little bit so I don't blow out my eardrums.
So I can hear everything.
Yes. In regards to Ian's singing, it is solid, stable.
Great voice.
The melody, the sung melody for this song is pretty straightforward, almost a rest in between the instrumental sections.
Yeah, right. It's best illustrated by that 1 minute of buildup. We get buildup, we get a crescendo of the instruments, and then we stop. And then Ian starts singing.
Yeah, pulls way, way, way back.
And they come back in, but there's this definitive demarcation moment there.
Words get written.
The first couple of lines of each of the three stanzas are very monotonal from Ian. Words get written, words get twisted, old meanings, first note change, move.
Yeah, right. It's almost spoken as well. There's a spoken aspect to it.
Yes, which of course we are going to get more familiar with as the years progress and in some of these more recent albums.
Yeah.
That being said, there is an intensity behind it. He's really starting to put a lot of emphasis on the attack of certain syllables. It's great. It really does feel like an evolution. It feels like something different from the band.
Yeah, I think so.
The real magic of this song, sonically, happens in between the verses.
The sporadic breakdowns, they're real good.
They're not short.
No.
At 2:40, I think that might be between the second and third stanza, we have a buildup that is just so satisfying. It goes from really, really, really quiet and really gentle to full intensity. And then at 2:55, we have this bizarre rupture. This reminds me a little bit of the old John Evan days when it'd be rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll, and then suddenly a stylistic departure in the middle of the song and him doing a bit of classical riffage.
Yeah.
In this one, we have 10 seconds of what I would describe as elevator music.
The jazzy bit, the weird like little jazzy breakdown.
It's so fun.
It's great. It's inexplicable, and I like it that way.
Andrew Giddings is really bringing his personality, bringing his playfulness right at the beginning. It's almost like reminds me of those old cartoons when it's like, they're chasing each other, and then the stop sign happens and a little old lady crosses and they're like, oh.
They stop there looking at their watch and tapping their foot and just,
Yeah. It's sort of that moment, but it's great. It brings a moment of, it creates a curiosity gap, like you have to really listen because you're like, what's going on?
Right. And we got some really good evident bass in that breakdown as well. Steve Bailey
Yes.
come boom, boom, boom. Also in the last of the breakdowns at about 4 minutes, we have a really nice little bass work as well. And then that leads into the final rundown where we have another minute of kind of winding down. But that bass is like the start of that, I think.
I'm finding Steve Bailey's bass work to be really appropriate for Tull because there's a drier side to it. It's very, very precise.
Yeah.
And full of intensity, but not too indulgent, I guess.
Yeah, it's utilitarian.
But it's playful,
Yeah.
but it's just very clean and very, very conscientious.
Well, I think from what it sounds like is he needed to, from what Ian said, he needed to bust his ass to learn this stuff. So he probably didn't have the luxury of like
Putting in a lot of flourishes.
having enough time to really work it in. Like he was doing it in the moment.
I wasn't counting because I was looking up something in the lyrics during our listen, but I think that there is a little bit of funkiness with the time signature that goes on toward the middle of this song.
Jesus, I didn't even think about it. I did not count.
There's something rhythmically that happens, and it could be a shift in time signature. It could just be a complex rhythm, but already from this album, I'm getting a sense of complexity that was not in Catfish,
Yes, very much.
where everything was kind of like, let's play as if we were from the Midwest, boys,
Yeah. Catfish is straightforward rock and roll
/ blues,
/ blues. Yeah. Folk, blues, jazz, prog,
blues and roll.
blues and roll.
Yeah.
Rock and blues.
Anything else to say musically about this track?
We get some nice harmonies particularly on the roots to branches. Somebody's really down low going, roots to branches. It's my favorite part to sing along to.
Somebody somewhere is singing.
Roots to branches. Roots to branches. Roots to branches.
You know, that could be Dave Pegg.
Oh, sure.
It could be that he came in and did backing vocals for all the tracks and then, you know, that he didn't play bass on.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Andy stepped in on some harmonization as well, you know?
Why not?
Yeah. And then finally, I've been listening to a lot of live Tull lately. The Bursting Out remasters are on Spotify now.
Oh, wow.
And I re-listened to it. It's a great mix, and there's some great extra tracks on there. I definitely recommend it if you didn't foot it for the CDs to get it. That being said, I've kind of got an ear listening for live Tull, and I would swear at the very end of this, the way the song itself ends, it deserves an Ian snort. You know how it goes
Yeah.
at the end of like a really long flute piece? It feels like it would work perfectly there. But it's not there.
It's not there.
I felt a little empty inside.
You felt a phantom snort.
But I've got phantom snort. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Since I had my snort removed. Since I stopped doing coke. Okay. Omen.
Oh,
No correspondences, no reviews,
nothing. It's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon.
to which I humbly implore you to write and review. You can reach us at momes@fecklessmomes.com or go
You
to
can.
fecklessmomes.com and you will find a contact us form on the front of the webpage.
You can do either or both of those things, or you can simply leave us a review wherever you want. In the men's bathroom at the 7-Eleven on 25th Street in Sheboygan, Michigan.
For a good time, ... listen to Talk Tull to me.
Scan this QR code.
But the QR code has to be written in Sharpie. I demand it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I will break into this lovely Roots to Branches World Tour book here.
Break into it.
First of all, we've got this really sexy lineup of the boys of the band here,
Wow.
the boy band.
With Ian sporting a black shirt and jeans.
Black t-shirt and jeans. Yeah.
Looking very serious.
Very utilitarian here. As mentioned, we've got Jonathan Noyce on bass for this tour.
In a suit.
So we're going to go right to the first page. Each band member has 2 pages, and one has like their resume and the other has kind of their travel kit.
Oh, fun.
And also each page has them talking about a specific song.
Cool.
We'll start with the first page of Ian's.
Wow.
It is the curriculum vitae, or curriculum vitae, if you are savage. Full name, Ian Scott Anderson. Address, 23 The Maltings, Little Futtock on the Wold, Wiltshire, England, not. Classic Wayne's World joke. Date and place of birth, 10th August 1947, Dunfermline, Scotland. Nationality, British. Education, 1953 to 58, Roseburn Primary, Edinburgh. 1958 to 1964, Blackpool Grammar. 1964 to 1966, Blackpool College of Art. Qualifications gained, 8 GCE O-levels, maths, physics, chemistry, English, art, French, geography, Latin.
Wow. This is so silly.
It is. Work experience, trainee retail sales assistant, Lewis's Department Store, Blackpool, 1964. News and magazine stand, sold Melody Maker and New Musical Express. Used to read them in lunch break, got big ideas. Musician, 1967 to 1995, still got big ideas.
Wow.
Other relevant information, no driving license. Interests and hobbies, cultivation of Capsicum annuum, frutiscens, chinenses, pubescens, and bacatum. Off-road motorcycling, driving, would like to go fishing, would like to try golf if no one watching, playing music when no one listening, going back to your concert in the woods, playing music when no one's listening.
See?
Cooking for myself since no one else is actually going to eat that stuff with the possible exception of Doan Perry. Study of stomach ailments, home plumbing, industrial effluent treatment, and disposal of toxic wastes.
This is the most Ian Anderson piece of writing that has ever Ian Anderson.
Hands down. And then finally, we'll get to his write-up for this song, Roots to Branches. Following my return from India, I followed up the title idea by completing the lyrics to the song already recorded with melody, but with only a couple of key vocal lines to the chorus. It is rather typical of the way in which component parts of the eventual end result come together at their duly appropriate time and place, if confidently left alone for the arrival of the muse, even if she has the disconcerting habit of tending to be on the last bus. Lyrically, the song works on the idea of the darker side of the various world religions' apparent and infinite capability for subdivision, and the, these days, inevitable return to ultra-conservative and fundamentalist beliefs.
Yikes.
Oh, beware the scary power of religious fervor mixed with the dangerous geopolitics and the chip-on-the-shoulder mindset of separatism, fragmentation, and the wild flag-waving desire to settle old scores.
Wow. Very prelude to Zealot Gene.
Yeah. And it could be happening in your town. For some of us, it already is. See lyrics for Valley. Cheer up, you silly old fool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, quite a lot of information there,
Yeah.
including the scientific name for a bunch of peppers.
Yes, right. And I just want to read, we've got another little quick blurb from Ian on the Wikipedia that I forgot to read, so we'll just read that as well.
Yeah.
From Ian, I see Roots to Branches as the 90s version of stand-up because it has a lot of the things that I feel represented the key elements of Jethro Tull. There's lots of flute, lots of riffy guitars, and quite a broad palette of influences, from the blues and classical to the Eastern motifs that were apparent on stand-up.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
On the other hand, Anderson also added that, quote, the only thing about it that lets me down is that I made it sound a little too 70s. I deliberately made the album sound like it was in the context of a live performance rather than have it sound too studio. But looking back on it, I think it should have been a bit more varied. So that, interestingly, I wonder if we ever get to the point where this gets a remaster, I wonder if Steve Wilson could tidy that up for him. If he would, because Steve Wilson has been given creative control of those remasters.
Interesting comparison to this was, we have A New Day Yesterday, Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square, Bourée, Back to the Family, Look into the Sun, Nothing is Easy, Fat Man, We Used to Know, Reasons for Waiting, and For a Thousand Mothers.
I'm struggling to find the comparison. I think it's maybe because this is so heavily laden with that Eastern influence that it's...
Wait, was it This Was or Stand Up that he said?
Stand Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, what is the case with that album with Stand Up is that it does have a lot of elements that kind of come together in a interesting melange.
Yeah, I guess so. I see that.
Of course, one could say that about just about anything.
I know, exactly. Like no Tull, aside from like Thick as a Brick, which is also, I listened to that while I was driving to the Mexico Point Park ribbon cutting, and I realized like it fits and it flows, but it really does have its specific distinct sections.
Yes, it does. Well, I mean, we're still getting to know this album.
Yeah.
Anything else to add about it before we dive into the lyrics?
That is it for me.
I am so excited to talk about this album. Let's talk about the lyrics in just a moment. Nick, welcome back to the second portion of the podcast.
Omen.
We are going to talk about the lyrics to the song Roots to Branches.
Yes, we just heard Ian's description of this, and I'm glad we read that because I was struggling to really pinpoint what this was, except I did put in here, this feels like religious commentary.
Yeah.
That's really all I had.
Oh, I think you nailed that.
Yeah.
I actually want to talk about the title, Roots to Branches.
Okay, sure.
You know, in light of what Ian has said about the endless bifurcation of religions and fragmentation and all that, it makes a lot of sense that, you know, you start from the trunk or you start from the root of something, and it grows into all these different manifold forms.
Right.
However, I was taking it to mean, you know, there's that image that shows the root structure of a tree and then the branch structure of a tree, and they almost look like the exact same thing. They parallel each other. Boom, there you go. You have it right on your arm.
Yeah.
And that, I often think of the old kind of Wiccan saying or New Age religion saying, as above, so below.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, as above, so below. And then I was like, what the heck does that actually mean? And so I looked it up, and the origin of that idea, in writing at least, dates back to the mythical figure of Hermes Trismegistus, who is not a real person, but has a number of writings attributed to him.
Okay.
Between 200s and the 800s ECE, Common Era.
Okay.
And in the Emerald Tablet, there is a reference which in the Middle Ages was translated from Arabic into Latin and then finally into English. And it reads, that which is above is like to that which is below, and that which is below is like to that which is above. And so if you look into that, you know, then everyone, all the writing about it is like, well, there's no way that you could possibly understand it. But basically what it means is this.
Yeah.
And describes that, you know, what you do in the physical world is reflected in the spiritual world, or things that happen in the spiritual world have ripples in the physical world.
Interesting. Okay.
So now that that's all out of the way.
Clear as mud. Clear as clay.
Yeah. But I actually think that the evolution of religion and the evolution of philosophy is actually probably more relevant to this.
Yeah. And to me, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like the term roots to branches is like soup to nuts. It's like encompassing everything, right? You got the roots, go all the way up to the branches.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be that as well.
Yeah.
I think that he starts to give it to us on this first line here.
Give it to me, Ian.
Words get written, words get twisted. Old meanings move in the drift of time.
Words get written, words get twisted. Old meanings move in the drift of time.
I mean, how much did we talk when we were talking about the Zealot gene about how simple differences in translation, whether they are intentional or unintentional, have had an impact on societies?
Plenty.
Yeah. Plenty.
Plenty.
Yeah. Words get written and then they get twisted into other meanings.
It's not just the Bible. Anyone will twist anything to fit their needs,
I'll twist anything.
including a soda top.
A twist 'em up.
Our thesis is here, and then we extrapolate accordingly.
Well, and even the next line, Maybe you say, well, writing is up to interpretation. Well, maybe sculpture is a better transmitter of ideas. Lift the flickering torches, let gentle shadows change the features of the faces cut in unmoving stone.
Lift the flickering torches, see candle shadows change the features of the faces cut in unmoving stone.
This is something we actually talked a lot about when I studied mask performing. That in a performance context, any sculptural object, any complex sculptural object like a mask or a face, if you tilt it and change its relationship to the light, the expression changes.
Yeah.
Archaeologists who have explored Lascaux, the cave in France, the Paleolithic art cave in France, have described that when they move their flashlights around, suddenly all of these pack animals, herd animals that are painted on the walls seem to be galloping and moving.
Yeah. They attribute that to the idea of having the fire or the torch in there doing that. So it was the first television, really.
Somebody had said that you could say that that was the first cinema.
Yeah.
So, this idea that even something that is cut into stone is up to interpretation depending on how the light shines on it.
Right. External factors will affect its interpretation. It's not just human interpretation. It's your senses can be deceived depending on certain things as well.
Yeah. And then we move to the, not exactly a chorus, but the line that wraps up all the verses.
Yeah.
Bad mouth on a prayer day, hope no one's listening, roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening.
Bad mouth on a prayer day, hope no one's listening. Roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening.
Any thoughts?
Well, the bad mouth on a prayer day, hope no one's listening, is someone not observing, respecting the holy day. Someone saying, God damn it, on a Sunday. And you're like, oh, hope the priest or God didn't hear.
Sure.
And this idea of, well, I'll get away with it if nobody hears. So it's a matter of convenience on whether, what is it? It's not a crime if you don't get caught. Is that what it is? It's not a sin if you don't get caught.
That is very much a concept.
Yeah. And then roots down in the wet clay, branches glistening. Now, for most trees, most plants in general, I'm assuming clay's not a great soil to be growing in.
That has always been my thought with this song, is that sounds like a terrible position for a tree to be in.
But branches glistening makes it sound like it's good and healthy, right?
I don't know. I picture like, I don't know where this image is coming from, but I just picture like this wet, dank, it shouldn't be growing there. It doesn't get enough sunlight.
Yeah.
There maybe aren't even leaves on it.
Interesting.
It's a very wet image.
To me, new growth on plants, a brand new stem, a brand new branch with it still green, or a brand new leaf is very shiny until it gets like worn down a little bit.
So that's the glistening for you.
Yeah, that's how I interpret glistening.
It's interesting. It's a bit of a mysterious line that doesn't give us that much to work with.
Yeah, maybe this clay is humanity and the badness. There is still the opportunity for goodness to come of it.
Yes. Or when you look at a tree, you look at the branches, you don't look at the roots because they're buried in the wet clay. And you're only seeing the most recent interpretation, if we're going with the religion theme.
Yeah.
You don't really have a sense of, well, what's actually down there? What is the root of this?
Right. Yeah, you see the new fancy stuff, and you really have to literally dig down if you want to see the roots of it. It may not be pretty, but that's the life of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like this.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Moving on to the second verse. True disciples carrying that message to color just a little with their personal touch. Well, I love that.
True disciples carrying that message to color just a little with their personal touch.
It seems innocuous. It seems just like, oh, it's this. But there's like a lot behind that when Ian's saying something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also a very, I think, accurate portrayal of how information, but particularly religion, gets disseminated. Okay, you have the one true source, let's say, and then you have these disciples, and their job is to go out and spread the word. Well, each one of them is a different person with a different set of vocabulary, a different sense of drama and communication. And I know that if it was me, some part of me would always be thinking like, well, yeah, but what would be a slightly more engaging way to tell this story?
That's it. That's exactly what I was thinking about. They'll each interpret it their own way. They'll decide what the important parts are, however they represent and spread this knowledge, this information, this dogma. They will play to their own strengths as well.
And part of that is at the service of spreading it, because if you're spreading a religious truth, but no one will listen to you, well, you're kind of not doing your job.
Right, exactly, yeah.
If you say, this is the truth, and everyone says, well, that's quite boring, I'll leave. If you say, this is the truth plus my gloss, and everyone's like, ooh, cool, we'll listen to you.
Yeah.
You might think, well, if it's at the service of spreading the word, then changing the word just a little bit is fine.
God will approve.
God will approve. Homespun fancy weavers and naked half-believers, crusades and creeds descend like fiery flakes of snow.
Homespun fancy weavers, naked half-believers, crusades and creeds descend like fiery flakes of snow.
Fun internal rhyme with fancy weavers and naked half-believers.
Yeah. So, homespun fancy weavers and naked half-believers.
I guess, part of what I'm getting from this is that there are so many methods for the preservation and spreading of religious idea or dogma or philosophy. One is to stay in one place and practice, or like the priests in the Middle Ages did, rewrite the books and rewrite the books and rewrite the books.
Yeah.
And another is to go make a big show of it and live as an ascetic in the woods or on the street. So I kind of feel like it's a reference just to that.
Yeah, this line is the hardest one for me to really place. Crusades and creeds descend like fiery flakes of snow, I get.
Yeah.
Totally.
Beautiful image.
Yeah. The homespun fancy weavers and naked half-believers. So that's part of this following sentence. We have the homespun fancy weavers and naked half-believers, as well as crusades and creeds. Both of those sets descend like fiery flakes of snow. How?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's also, if you're a half believer, why are you naked?
Savage, quote unquote. Are we thinking, uneducated?
Is there a connection between weaving and having clothes, being fancy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then naked. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, also, just having the terms half believers and crusades next to each other makes me think that, a lot of people who went on the crusades definitely were believers. Mm-hmm. They thought this was the right thing to do. We have to go and retake the Holy Land.
Yeah.
I think probably a lot of them were in it for the huge economic benefits.
Sure. Of course.
Or maybe just wanted to go see the world.
Less likely, but yes. Yeah. Yeah. Naked half-believers, thinking about it now that I said it, really does make me think of missionaries going to the quote-unquote third world countries. They're wearing nothing but a loincloth, and you bring this to them.
Oh. So the homespun fancy weavers are the converters, and the naked half-believers are the convertees who are like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, just leave. We believe in Jesus.
Or you're like, you want to build us a school? Okay.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Then we continue with Bad Mouth on a Prayer Day. Hope no one's listening. No change in those lyrics all the way through the song.
Yep.
Here is where I got really excited. In wet and windy priest holes, grand in vast cathedrals, high on lofty minarets, or in the temples of doom.
In wet and windy priest holes, grand in vast cathedrals, high on lofty minarets, or in the temples of doom.
Did you get excited about priest holes, Omen?
I sure did.
What is a priest hole? Keep it G-rated.
A priest hole? Well, I thought that it was a reference to Dante's Inferno, where some of the less than pious cardinals that Dante particularly didn't like, he described as being headfirst in a fiery hole.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's actually not what this is a reference to. A priest hole refers to an architectural feature that came about when Catholics started to be persecuted in England, Wales in the 1600s.
Yeah.
So the country was officially Anglican at this point, and Catholicism was persecutable under law. And of course, there were plenty of Catholic families and some Catholic priests. And so an effort was made to build hiding places into a lot of houses.
Yeah.
It was often a very, very small, like just enough space for a human body. And when yes, Nick McGill.
It reminds me of the Underground Railroad, honestly.
Absolutely. Very similar. Or even
Anne Frank.
Anne Frank's attic.
Yeah. According to the Wikipedia, following the accession of Queen Elizabeth I to the throne in 1558, there were several Catholic plots designed to remove her.
Yeah.
And severe measures, including torture and execution, were taken against Catholic priests. From the mid-1570s, hides were built into houses to conceal priests from priest hunters.
Yeah.
Most of the hides that survive today are in country manor houses, but there is much documentary evidence of hides in towns and cities, especially in London.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really interesting history. Some of them are very rudimentary. There were cases of priests dying of suffocation or lack of water when hiding for multiple days.
Yeah.
Nicholas Owen was a renowned builder of priest holes. He had Jesuit associations. The Jesuits were a group who were trying to protect the priests, the Catholics in England. He built a bunch of them and then was caught, tortured to death in the Tower of London. And in the 1970s, he became the patron saint of escapologists and illusionists.
Escapologists. That's cool, though. That's really clever.
Illusionologists.
Illusionists and escapologists.
Illuminatiists. Escapologists. That seems unnecessary, an unnecessary pronunciation.
Yeah, agreed.
But fun.
But that's the way it is.
So I think what we're talking about is that faith exists in all these different places, that the nature of one's faith is ideally not changeable by outside influences.
Right.
You should have the same faith whether you are in a huge cathedral or stuck in a priest hole.
Right, exactly. And I think that reference to the priest hole is really poignant here because we're talking about the splitting off of the religions.
Yes, absolutely.
And even though you're on the run and you're in hiding, if your faith is true, you will maintain that faith.
But also, how ridiculous that the Anglicans and the Catholics, who essentially have the same religion,
same thing. Yeah.
It literally is just political.
Yeah.
That's what he said. You know, the overlap of religious zealotry and the possibility for political gain is a really dangerous combination.
Yeah.
Interesting line to wrap us up here. I hope the old man's got his face on. He'd better be some quick change artist. Suffer little children to make their minds up soon.
I hope the old man's got his face on. He'd better be some quick change artist. Suffer little children to make their minds up soon.
I imagine old man is a reference to God.
I was thinking it's going back to the priest hole.
Oh, interesting.
He better be some quick change artist so he can be an escapologist and GTFO.
Yeah, it could be that. I imagined that it's God who, when the Catholics are praying to him, has to look a certain way.
Oh, so much better. Yes.
And then when the Hindus are praying to him, he's like, oh, hold on a second. I gotta, well, yes, I'm here.
I need a couple more arms here. Yeah.
Yep. Get those out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so much better. I like that a lot.
Joseph Campbell talks about, one of his books is called The Masks of God. Mm-hmm. And he describes all of the different divinities that exist in the world as simply masks that allow the true divinity to shine through them, to illuminate them. That humans need the divine to have some sort of form in order for us to interact with it. Mm-hmm. And so while the truth of divinity is formless, is undefinable, we, because of that, make these masks for divinity to animate.
Yeah. And that last line, suffer little children to make their minds up soon, is the human race. The human race is the little children. And we're all of different minds and we're all constantly changing.
Right.
And I believe in this, and then I believe in this, and then this group breaks off and believes in this. But God's getting tired.
There's only so long he can do the Hannah Montana act.
Yeah. Yeah. Who do you want? Miley Cyrus or Hannah Montana? Pick one and stick with it.
God says, I'm just a girl
That's it.
doing her best.
That's in the Bible, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just a girl
Moses, I'm just a girl.
standing in front of 7 billion boys asking them to stop being so fucking annoying.
Yep. Yeah. I blame the boys. Temple of Doom, is that a reference to 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
I mean, surely it must be.
It's got to be, right?
A great film.
There is religion in there, and they worship
Oh, yes.
Kalima. Kalima.
बलि मांगती काली माँ मुक्ति देगी काली माँ काली माँ काली माँ काली माँ शक्ति दे.
Do you know that film was banned in India? India was not happy about that film because it portrayed, the thing they were really mad about was the eating scene when they eat the monkey brains.
Really? And the snakes, the pregnant snake? Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, nobody does that.
Wow.
And this is not how we are going to increase tourism and get better relationships
Yeah.
between our countries. But the film was not well received in India.
Interesting.
Yeah. Nick, anything else about this song, the lyrics therein, or the overall vibe of it?
That is it for my notes. I'm glad we got that deep dive. This song was always, I really like the sound, and I like the subconscious drive and feel behind the lyrics, but I was never able to really pinpoint just exactly what he was going for. But I do like that we were able to unscramble it a little bit. I don't think it's perfect,
I don't think it's perfect.
but we got a whole hell of a lot farther than I had.
I have this image of this wet, clay, slimy tree growing so fast and so out of control that you don't have a handle on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing to the point where you can't. Humanity has lost control of our invention of religion.
Yeah, it's too late to... It's not trim, pare. It's too late to pare it down. Unless it's a pear tree. Is it not paring? What's it called?
Prune.
Prune, thank you. Unless
It could
it's
be
a prune tree.
There you go. Nick, what do we have the pleasure of listening to next week? And gosh, please say it's Jethro Tull.
We are on track number 2 of Roots to Branches. It is actually Jethro Tull.
Oh my gosh.
It's Rare and Precious Chain. It's what you're wearing right now, a rare and precious chain.
Apparently not featuring Dave Pegg or Steve Bailey, although we'll see if that is in fact the case. Until next week, thank you for reminding our listeners that they can always write into us. That's always the nicer thing to remember.
Always appreciated, yeah.
You know, you can also go to our TeePublic page, get yourself a t-shirt.
Why not?
You could join our Patreon, which gives you access most spectacularly to the multi-headed creature that is our Discord chat, wherein many Tull Skulls chat about all things Tull and many things not Tull.
The Hydra has taken over, and honestly, we stopped cutting off heads. We're happy with it.
There's nothing we can do. It's fine. Until next week, I need to get my face on. I'm Omen Thomas Sade.
I am a suffering little child, Nick McGill.
We are Naked Half Believers, the Feckless Momes.
And this is recorded in a wet and windy priest hole. Talk Tull to me.
We just have to stay here until the podcast hunters Get out. Quick! Quick! I'm going crazy! Pinch me! Pinch me, Brother Nick! Ah! All we have to do is remember that sacred prayer. Tacus telecus tumiacus is the proudest memberess of feckless amomus audio networkitis. Any podcasters in there?
No!
Just us ladybugs.
Just 2 naked women, that's all.
Oh, I hate seeing that.